request participants to share maybe the link with others, inshallah. So, Prof, inshallah, let's begin our lecture today. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على النبي الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. نادي الاقتصاد الإسلامي بجامعة الكويت is privileged to welcome you all to this special lecture entitled Islamic Fintech Issues, Challenges and Prospects. And I would like to welcome all the participants, including lecturers, students, and guests from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us in this special lecture. So we are also honored to have our special guest speaker today, who is very well-known and renowned person globally in the field of Islamic banking and finance, and who is involved in Islamic banking and finance as a trainer, as a lecturer, researcher, and also consultant. He is Professor Dr. Yunus Sawalhi. And Prof was the former Deputy Dean of International Islamic University in Malaysia, Institute of Islamic Banking and Finance. And he was also a professor in the Department of Fiqh and Usul Fiqh at IIUM. Currently, he is a senior researcher and also the head of Islamic Banking Unit at International Sharia Research Academy, ISRA, Malaysia. Prof. Yunus also serves as a member of Sharia Committee of HSBC Amana, Malaysia. He is also the chairman of the Sharia Board of Munich Takaful, Malaysia, member of Sharia Board of Bursa, Malaysia, and many more, mashallah. Prof. Also as a registered financial planner, RFP, awarded by the Malaysian Financial Planning Council, MFPC. And Alhamdulillah, he published many articles and books in pure Sharia-related issues and Islamic banking and finance. So this is our honor to have Professor Dr. Yunus with us today to conduct this lecture on Islamic Fintech Issues, Challenges and Prospects. So please welcome Prof. Thank you very much for joining us, for providing and giving your time and effort. May Allah bless you, Prof.
Thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. First of all, as usual, I would like to thank the Islamic Economics Club of the University of Kuwait for extending this invitation to me one more time. To address one of the most important topics nowadays. Special thanks to the president of the club, Dr. Ala Al-Ubaid, and to her distinguished staff and members, and also to you, Dr. Muhyiddin, for coordinating this program. Thank you very much. Jazakumullahu khairan, and I would like to welcome all the audience, and I hope this session will be beneficial to all of us, inshallah. What we are going to do basically is to give some overview of the Islamic Fintech in terms of concept, in terms of structure, in terms of infrastructure, and in terms of some issues, challenges, and prospects. There is no doubt that this is one of the hot issues nowadays. Probably everyone is talking about it in one way or the other. And as we talk about it, this particular area is developing across the world, not only the Islamic world, not only the Western world, but also in the Islamic world. And I'm sure by now you have already known what Islamic Fintech is all about. And this seems to be the new trend of research, training, even specialization. Some are writing their PhD thesis, master thesis, and also in terms of research, this seems to be a very attractive topic. Now, just a glimpse of what we want to see. We are going to see the definition of Islamic Fintech, then an overview of the Islamic Fintech development in the Muslim world. And we will end this discussion by discussing a few issues and see how can we go about them. So Islamic Fintech basically refers to, or is used to describe new technology that seeks to improve and automate the delivery and use of Islamic financial services. So basically, as you all know, Islamic Fintech consists of two words. One is financial, the other one is technology. So this is no more than merging finance with technology, or using technology in the promotion of finance. Now, if we are doing that based on Islamic principles, then we are talking about Islamic financial technology. One may say technology is something abstract that doesn't need to be described as Islamic, because we are dealing with systems, instruments, we are dealing with something electronic. How can we describe it as Islamic? I would say as we go deeper into this, we will find that there are some Islamic aspects to this technology. And this is one of the issues that I would like to share with you. But overall, the word Islamic tends to put some parameters to some utilization of technology, because some of the utilization is not Sharia compliant. That's why we need to discuss it within the Islamic principles. Not only that, the instrument may be Islamic, but the main framework may not be. So we need to understand the main framework, basically. But let's, at the beginning, understand that Islamic financial technology is not different from conventional financial technology, but it's just that in some areas we need to have the Islamic input, right? For example, you cannot use financial technology to finance Sharia non-compliant assets. An Islamic bank, for instance, cannot use financial technology without putting some parameters. That's why we need to talk about the Islamic framework. Generally, when we talk about fintech, of course, Islamic financial technology is shortened fintech or Islamic fintech. So we have certain areas such as blockchain, insurtech, crowdfunding, mobile payment, regtech, open banking. For some of you, he's already familiar with these terms. And for some, probably this is the first time to hear about this. But when we talk about fintech, normally we are talking about these areas: blockchain, crowdfunding, mobile payment, open banking, regtech, and insurtech. And of course, we can add something called cryptocurrency, smart contracts, artificial intelligence. There are many areas that I'm going to shed light on. Now, this slide shows the overall, I would say, landscape or the overall map of Islamic fintech framework. According to some reports, this is based on the Global Islamic Fintech Report 2021, a very recent one, gives this overall picture of Islamic fintech. So what do we see in this slide? First, we see the players of this. So you have here customers, okay, Just give me a minute to enlighten the words. You have here the customers. You have basically you have the customers who are the main players. Okay. Then you have the business organizations. These are the institutions dealing with fintech. And you have financial institutions, for example, Islamic banks, takaful companies, Islamic capital market, and so on. These are called the players, basically. Now, in terms of services, where do we find Islamic fintech, basically? We find it in social finance, for example, waqf, zakat, and sadaqah, right? We find it in insurance. And here we are talking about takaful, which is offered via technology or modern, technology, right? So this is in the area of social finance. So we can apply Islamic fintech in social finance, mainly zakat, waqf, and sadaqah. We can apply it in insurance. We can apply Islamic fintech in wealth management, whereby we talk about robo-advisory, pensions, asset management. Okay, so we can talk about Islamic fintech in Islamic banking. For example, in deposit and lending, we need Islamic fintech in order to run the deposits in a way that effective and cost efficient. Then we have something called open banking. And here we are talking about digital banks and so on. Use, for example, blockchain. That's why in the future we're expecting our deposits, for example, saving deposit or current account or saving account. We are expecting this to be via fintech, via financial technology. Not only that, when you want to buy a house, for example, a mortgage. When you want to buy a house, when you want to buy property from the Islamic bank, that can be done via financial technology. And here, I'm going to mention later, we can use blockchain as a platform actually for selling and buying through the Islamic bank, and so on. So there are many areas. So this slide actually shows the main areas where Islamic fintech can operate. Then when it comes to the third layer, which is finance here, we need Islamic fintech to raise fund, raising of fund. So we have a scheme called peer-to-peer and crowdfunding, meaning to say, now we have something called crowdfunding. So people collectively, they fund a project via a platform, electronic platform. So this platform, they collect this fund and they utilize it for the funding of a project, for example, a housing project. So this is done through financial technology. The way the money is collected, the way the money is channeled, the way the fund is actually tracked, the way it is audited, the way it is the risk management part, the way it is studied from the risk management perspective. We are using technology to do all that. When it comes to payment, it's the same thing. When it comes to payments of things, if you are a corporate, you are buying assets and products, the way you settle this via, for example, if you are an importer or an exporter, the way you pay, if you are an importer, the way you pay the exporter would use technology. Today, we are doing it through letter of credit and some other means, but in the future, we're expecting technology to replace all these classical instruments. Remittances, when you go to a bank to transfer an amount of money to, let's say, to Australia or to any country in the world, we are expecting these remittances to be using Islamic financial technology. Of course, each point I'm mentioning here has its own definition, instrument, and so on. I'm just giving a very broad idea of where Islamic fintech can be operational. FX, foreign exchange, the same thing. So now the foreign exchange is done in certain platforms, but in the future, we are expecting the foreign exchange to be done via financial technology and so on. So there are plenty of utilization. Capital market. Capital market also is a good way of using Islamic fintech in terms of investment, in terms of trading, and in terms of structuring, issuing, and trading of the sukuk. Digital assets. We use financial technology to talk about, for example, cryptocurrency exchanges or digital assets and how these digital assets are being traded, right? So we need something called crypto exchanges, whereby these cryptocurrencies as digital assets are being traded. So we need a platform for that trading. Wallets or e-wallets. E-wallets use financial technology, and so on. So overall, this slide has shows the areas where Islamic financial technology can be operational. So social finance, insurance, wealth management, deposits, fundraising, payment, capital market, and so on. Now, let's have a broad idea of the Islamic fintech by sectors. As you can see here, this report, which was conducted in 2021, which was actually prepared in 2009, it has surveyed the market in the OIC countries, in the Islamic Conference, Islamic Conference members, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the OIC. So in the OIC member countries, there are some needs of the Islamic fintech. For example, in finance, as you can see here, we have 135 areas where we need Islamic fintech. For example, if you see this on the payments, so we need this in the payments, as I said, deposits, raising funds, capital market, and so on. So the current position is that we have in the OIC member countries, we have these sectors where Islamic financial technology has developed. It has developed in social finance, whereby we have, for example, 6 areas within the social finance that are using Islamic fintech. In the area of insurance, there are 12 areas that we need Islamic fintech in it, and so on. So the objective of this slide is just to show you that almost all sectors in a society, all the economic sectors need fintech, right? Whether you're talking about finance, you need Islamic fintech. Whether you're talking about social finance, you need Islamic fintech, and so on. So to summarize it, in the world of finance, what do we have? We have the banking, we have the Islamic capital market, and we have the takaful. All these three areas need Islamic financial technology. Of course, each sector has its own specific needs. As I said, in banking, in Islamic banking, there are specific needs, such as the need of import and export. So this is one area where Islamic financial technology can play a big role. For example, on documentation. Documentation is needed by all. Each sector needs to go into fintech so that documentation, instead of using papers, now is going to use electronic documentation, which is using now the blockchain technology. One of the functions of blockchain technology is documentation, whereby all these contracts are actually stored in blocks, hence the word blockchain. So you have a long chain, and chain consists of blocks, and each block consists a number of dealings, transactions, contracts, which are actually stored and documented. That's the documentation, basically. So that's the new future. Now, Islamic fintech has potentials. These potentials can be understood in the slides, can be understood based on the themes. So what are the themes of of fintech generally? In fintech, we have something called artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, you will find here a description of it. And what is the problem that it has solved? So artificial intelligence, this is a set of technologies to enable computers to execute smart tasks through technologies such as natural language processing, expert systems, machine learning, and so on. So it is a system that is able to analyze, to predict, and to execute orders. So this kind of technology has solved a problem. One is it automates labor-intensive tasks and helps improve customer experiences by generating insights and making predictions. So number one, it has automated the process. It became automatic. And you can imagine when things are being automated, that's more convenient, efficient, and of course, cost efficient. And not only that, we have this feature of prediction. So this technology has the potential of prediction. Now, these are just an example how Islamic fintech, if it is well utilized, you can see what will be the future of Islamic finance, right? And we have something called big data analytics, the same thing. This is about processing large data from multiple different sources, driving business decisions. So this is a technology that is able to analyze big information, big data, and of course, helping to drive the stakeholders towards making decisions. And therefore, it has helped to reduce the time and error, and so on. That's why one of the potentials that exist in Islamic function is this automation process. Everything is going to be automated. Another potential area is the disintermediation leading to open access to services. The word disintermediation refers to there is no need for intermediaries when we are talking about financial technology. Financial technology is going to decentralize and actually remove the barriers between you and the other party. For example, in a contract, you need someone to deal, you need a lawyer if you want to buy a house, or if you want to, so you need a third party, which is a lawyer who is, let's say, an intermediary, in order to execute that transaction. But with financial technology, you don't need that intermediary. For example, in the future, if you are buying a house or a property or anything that requires a lawyer, that requires the existence of an intermediary, that lawyer is no more needed. Why? Because blockchain, for instance, will replace the lawyer. Now, so this is removing a layer. So this kind of, that has generated something called peer-to-peer finance. So this is a technology that connects businesses directly with investors through a web-based platform for a fee. So you as an investor, if you want to invest, this platform shows you where to invest your money. So it's like, it's connected businesses together. I have the capital, but I need to invest it, let's say, in property. But who is going to show me this property market? There should be a platform. So that platform is the intermediary actually between me as a capital provider and the let's say the property project or the real property project that I want to invest my money in. So therefore, that technology will help to connect businesses together. And therefore, this has effect on expanding access to financing, especially SMEs. Because the issue is capital may be available, but who has access to that capital? For example, I am a businessman, I want to invest, and there is someone who needs my money to invest it, but we cannot get connected with each other. So someone has to connect us. So this technology is able to connect capital providers and project managers. And this is very ideal in mudaraba transactions, because in mudaraba, or even in musharaka transactions, you always have capital available, and you have the manager of that capital also available, but they are not able to reach each other, to connect with each other. So this financial technology, through certain platforms, which we call it here peer-to-peer finance, can actually connect businesses together. So that's the potential that exists in Islamic fintech. I'm just giving some examples. I'm not going into much details. Now, another area, greater decentralization and security. And here we are, the blockchain platform. So blockchain alone is a huge technology that tracks and records data using distributed digital ledger system, verifying and storing data across hundreds of thousands of computers globally. So this is just a platform that stores data. It verifies transactions across hundreds or even thousands, not only locally, but globally. Now, this blockchain, which is no more than a series of blocks, and in each block, as I said, some data in a form of contract, for instance, is actually being stored and verified, and is actually safe. And the likelihood of being hacked is very minimal. So this technology can remove the need of cost. I mean, it will remove what we call, it will reduce the cost and keep transactions in a central repository database, and it improves accountability and improves security. So this is something that we need, actually, that all Islamic financial institutions need. Cybersecurity is the same thing now. While technology is something good, but there is always a risk of hacking. There's always a risk of, because now, as they say, technology is developing and hackers are getting smarter. The hackers are also getting smarter. I'm not sure many of you have received spams and emails from hackers, and now they're able to hack your account. I mean, suddenly you find an email from a hacker, and the moment you open it, he may have access to your data in your computer. So the advice is don't open such strange emails. Why? Because, as someone says, the COVID-19 has taught these thieves and hackers new ways of stealing money and going into these kind of hacking activities. Why? Because they have now ample time and they know everything is getting digital. So it's an opportunity for them actually to try their new skills of hacking. That's why cybersecurity is now more than essential. Another technology is cloud adoption. Now everyone has a cloud account in which you can store your data. This is also very important because in the future we are moving to this cloud technology whereby most of our information of our data will be stored. So these are the areas actually where Islamic Fintech can invest. So this is just an idea of the global fintech financing activity. So generally, there are about now 8,000 fintech firms globally that have raised 110 billion since 2010. And there are, just in 2018, 58 billion USD have been raised through fintech solutions. So as you can see here, from 2010 to 2017, you can see the curve, which is going higher. So this big number of fintech firms, which is now, I think it has surpassed already 10,000 firms. And also the amount raised is more than 58 now. These have been actually circulating in the fintech generally, not only the Islamic fintech, in fintech generally, through the utilization of fintech in deposits, in trade financing, in treasury, in wealth management, and in insurance. But what is important in this slide is to see that there is a curve that's going up, which means there is a huge investment in this. Why? Because this has become the trend now. This developing industry, we can also call it an industry, has certain drivers. I mean, who is actually behind it? Of course, governments. So about 2 years ago, this statistic, for example, in one country, 100 million planned in Dubai, for instance, whereby they allocated 100 million USD to develop, to invest in fintech startups. Bahrain and Malaysia have set up regulatory framework for fintech growth. These are just examples, but the main point here is that governments are the main drivers for the development of fintech. And I'm going to show just one example from Malaysia later to see what Malaysia is doing here. Startups. So we have here companies, fintech companies. About 2 years ago, there was about 93 Islamic fintech players globally. Now the number is even bigger. Then who is the third driver? That is you and me, the customers. So these are the three main drivers for Islamic fintech: the governments through their policies, regulations, then companies, these are the ones that provide the services. Then you have the customers. Why customers are so important? Because in the Muslim world, the average age of people are youth, actually, young demographic. Average is 24 years. The average age of the Muslims in the world is about 24. And that means this age is more capable of using technology than the older age. Why? Because they were born in the digital era, we can say. So all this youth, even now our children, they know better than us in technology. They are more willing, they are more ready. Actually, they are more capable of grasping and understanding and even applying technological issues than the old generation. So this young age of the Muslim world is a positive thing because they are born in the digital era, they are more capable of using it, and they are more, they are a big driver for the development of Islamic fintech. Now, all our youth, probably with the exception of you, have smartphones, and they are using their smartphones. Some of them who have accounts, they're using their bank, their application to transfer money, to receive their salaries, and to do some online banking or digital banking. We call it online banking. Now, this generation, so if fintech is developed, they will be more capable of understanding it and applying it, right? Now, looking at the OIC member countries, right, there are 72% who are unbanked. That's a big percentage, basically. So in the OIC countries, so you have these 44 or 56 Muslim countries, 72 of them don't have a bank account. So is this a positive or a negative thing? Of course, as a fact, it is not something that we have to be happy about. But looking from business perspective, these 72, if this is the market that we can tap, or that which Islamic fintech can tap. I mean, they can provide Islamic fintech solutions, and they can target this population, which means the market is ready. Is ready in terms of people who are who will be the target of this technology. Because if everybody is technology savvy, then the industry is not going to be really developed, because technology will develop when you have people who need it and need to understand it and use it. But if people are already using it, that means your market is stable. I mean, your market is stagnant. So there are the more people who are not using the technology, the more chances you have to actually penetrate those communities and make them actually ready to use it. So three main drivers of Islamic fintech. Now, I'm just keeping some slides. Now, looking at the Islamic map, Islamic world map, according to the same study which I have referred to, the Global Islamic Fintech Report 2021, which is a recent one, It placed Malaysia on top of the countries that uses that are actually ready and developed in the Islamic fintech. Among the OIC members, of course, again, the study has been made on the OIC members, Organization of Islamic Cooperation members, and Malaysia ranked first, then Saudi Arabia, in terms of utilizing, developing the infrastructure, developing the regulation, developing the assets, developing the infrastructure in general, right? So you have Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Indonesia, United Kingdom, Bahrain, and so on, which means most of the Islamic countries actually have well utilized, the fintech, and now they are utilizing it for the betterment of their community. This study has made a scoring, and this is just to show how each country has scored. Now you can probably find your country. If you are from Malaysia, then you have scored 87.0 among a scale of the countries that have developed and utilizing Islamic fintech. I'm talking about Islamic fintech, right? Then secondly, Saudi Arabia. In terms of regulation, in terms of companies, how many companies are using fintech? For example, crowdfunding companies. Crowdfunding companies is part of the fintech, right? United Arab Emirates and so on. Apart from the countries that are facing wars or have just come out from a war, you may find them at the end of the list. But of course, there are some countries, even though they are not having wars or any financial problems, but they have not developed the financial technology infrastructure yet. They are still following classical financing methods, very routine type of financing or investment or services. So they are yet actually to tap into this market, even though they are not in any, let's say, war or any problem. So what you see in this slide is the hubs. So there are some we call maturing leaders. The leaders of Islamic fintech are generally two: Malaysia and UAE, whereby this leadership is featured by high growth, which means we had a high growth of Islamic fintech, and high conduciveness, which means the environment is conducive, whereby you have regulations, you have the market, you have the technology, and is available, which is well supported by governments and so on. Then you have maturing markets. Maturing markets means it has reached some kind of maturity, but the growth is low growth, even though the environment is conducive. And you have Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, and Iran, and Bahrain. Then you have emerging markets, which is featured by high growth but low conduciveness. There is a high growth, but the environment is still not very much conducive. Conducive means still the infrastructure is not up to the expectation, and so on. So you have Kuwait, Pakistan, Qatar, and Jordan. Then you have dormant, low growth, and low conduciveness. Here, the report has not mentioned in a country. But generally, we have leaders and we have emerging markets, but these are the top Muslim countries that have they have potential actually to go even higher in their growth. Malaysia is just an example whereby it has scored 87 in the in the survey made by this report. Okay. So this gives some details about the market size, regulatory bodies, of course, the Central Bank of Malaysia, and even the Securities Commission, regulatory initiatives. So they have digital currency tokens, e-money, digital banking, digital assets. And this will give simply some ideas of certain companies. For example, in insurance, you have these companies. In payments, you have some companies that facilitate, for example, PayPal and so on. When it comes to raising of funds, you have some companies that raise funds. For example, Ethis actually is a crowdfunding company regulated by the Securities Commission of Malaysia. So the main job is actually to raise fund mainly for housing projects in Indonesia, and so on. For social finance, for example, zakat, you have Global Sadaqah. Global Sadaqah is also is a company that specializes in soliciting funds and sadaqah, and channel it to the recipients. And you have wealth management companies. So for wealth management, you have these companies. The main point here is that, for example, in capital markets, there is cooperation with Islamic markets in Dubai. So there is actually a cooperation between the Islamic capital market and the Islamic markets, which is actually a digital platform. But all these are using Islamic Fintech, right? To end this discussion, let me just, after having an overview of Islamic Fintech in the Muslim world, the main areas, the main, I would say, the potentials where Islamic Fintech can invest. These are some of the issues and challenges of Islamic Fintech, one of which is the Sharia compliance. Islamic Fintech in certain areas uses, for example, cryptocurrency and smart contract. Cryptocurrency and smart contract both still have some Sharia concerns by the Sharia authorities. For example, the International Fiqh Academy is has discussed the issue of cryptocurrency and smart contract, but they have not issued a resolution yet. For example, cryptocurrency, there is still a debate, as you all know, whether it is a currency as a legal tender or is just a digital asset. Or is just a financial asset. Is financial asset or digital asset or a currency? So the debate is still going on, even though many governments have not or have banned actually cryptocurrency as a currency, having the main role of a currency, even though they allow it to be traded as a digital asset. And for that, for example, many countries such as Malaysia, they have allowed what is called exchanges. Exchanges, this is the platform where the cryptocurrency can be traded, but it can be traded only as an asset, as a digital asset, but it cannot be used as a currency, as a medium of exchange. In other words, it cannot be a legal tender. So we don't have a Sharia resolution on the Sharia compliance of cryptocurrency as a medium of exchange. The same thing applies to smart contract. When you talk about smart contract, you're talking about a contract that execute an order, whether that order is an agreement between two parties or even one party. But the way a contract is structured electronically is based on matching. If something happened, then a specific outcome will happen. Meaning to say, if you want to buy a house, for instance, you will have to program the platform, and that platform actually will store the information related to that asset that you want to buy or you want to sell. If certain conditions are met, then that contract is executed electronically and automatically. Now, again, the international Sharia authorities have not decided on the Sharia compliance of this kind of contracts. So they have actually postponed the decision until further research is made. So the point here is that there are still Sharia concerns as far as Islamic fintech is concerned. Another issue is the issue of, or challenge of, the awareness of stakeholders. Of course, not everybody is aware of the details of Islamic fintech. Why? Because on the one hand, it is developing very fast. And third, the awareness of it. Why? Because in this platform, you need to do a lot of transformation. That's what we call the disruption. That transformation is you are going to transform your dealings. For example, the documentation, the verification, you are going to transform it from classical, traditional way to the new way, or to the new platform. So that transformation, depending on the pace of transformation, if you are not doing it fast and at the right time, then that's going to cause a lot of headache and hassles. So that's why you need, number one, there should be an awareness about who are the stakeholders here. So you have the government, of course, and you have the companies that apply fintech, and you have customers, people like you and me. So for me to understand, normal people, to understand the complexities of technology in finance, we need to have a minimum level of understanding. Just like the online banking. Before this, we used to go to the bank to cash a check or to withdraw money. Later, we started using ATM machines to withdraw money. Then online banking has emerged, and now we are doing our online banking by transferring from one account to another, or by paying our bills. We are doing it online. The same thing would happen in fintech, in Islamic fintech. We need some time to adjust to the transformation that will happen in the Islamic fintech. But that depends on how ready we are to embrace Islamic fintech, right? As I said before, the young generation, they don't have any problem. They have the ability to adjust and to adapt, right? But we need to teach them. There should be an educational role in one way or the other in order to meet this challenge. Disruption pace. The disruption means the transformation from the old to the new system is very fast. And this is a challenge, because if you do not catch up on time, we will be left behind, we'll be lagging behind. So as the West is developing a lot of solutions using fintech, in the Muslim world, we are still actually struggling just to understand what is this about. Now you can see the difference. Again, the West is the one who is providing solutions, right? So we need to actually to familiarize ourselves with the pace of development so that we can catch up and we will not be left behind. Another issue and challenge is the regulatory framework. Many Muslim countries have yet to develop a regulatory framework for Islamic fintech. Then you have cross-border fintech operations. This fintech allows cross-border operations, let's say between Malaysia and Indonesia, between Malaysia and America. Sometimes there are some legal challenges due to these cross-border fintech operations. So this has to be resolved. Funding for some developed industries such as Saudi Arabia, such as Malaysia, UAE, the funding is not much a problem. Why? Because the regulators, certain ministries actually fund so-called fintech projects. For example, startup companies, these are fintech companies. They are being helped and assisted by governments, and some of them are being given a fund. I mean, they are being funded. Generally, there is no funding problem in many developed countries, many Muslim developed countries in the area of Islamic fintech. But where Islamic fintech has not developed, funding is an issue because it's not yet part of the economic plan. So funding is an issue in many Muslim countries. Another issue is human capital. So you need to have people savvy, well aware, and also well trained in Islamic fintech solutions. So you need engineers, you need artificial intelligence experts, you need financial experts, those who are able to understand finance in the same time to understand technology. So this breed of experts need to be trained. Government support, this is in line with this. So many governments are supporting, for example, in the startup companies, SMEs. So they help them actually to establish their own companies and to support them to have Islamic fintech solutions. But some governments are not. So the government support is very, very important. The last one is the prospect, and these are actually the opportunities that exist in the Islamic fintech area or the Islamic fintech services. For example, according to the same report, there are some opportunities. For example, for the leaders companies such as Malaysia and Saudi Arabia and others, the opportunities are more on the raising of funds, deposit and lending, and payments. The way the payment system through online, through the usage of certain platforms for the payment, there is a big opportunity for these three actually to develop. Why? Because there is a big government support, there is an infrastructure. So it's easy now actually to raise funds through crowdfunding or peer-to-peer, actually for crowdfunding. For deposit, many Islamic banks have developed some product based on blockchain. And for payment, so we are seeing more, for example, you have the e-wallet. This e-wallet, for example, in Malaysia recently, they have the Sharia Advisory Committee of the Central Bank of Malaysia has allowed e-wallet as a way, and e-wallet is considered as one of the Islamic fintech technologies. Now everybody in Malaysia is using the e-wallet. Many Islamic banks are developing blockchain products, and many startup companies or crowdfunding companies are now able to raise funds. Okay, when you go to some maturing companies, alternative finance and wealth management represents an opportunity for them. Then when it comes to some emerging markets, those who are just emerging, whereby there is low volume, but there is high momentum, there is a great potential in issuing digital assets and social finance as well as capital market. Okay, but when it comes to some dormant markets which are still actually where there is low volume or low momentum, the insurance, according to the report, is one of the areas that can be developed. But I would say my own comment on this, that every area is a potential area. Every area is a potential area. Because the needs are the same. the need are the same. When you go to some countries where there is no developed technology, one of the things that you need to raise fund. You need to raise fund through crowdfunding. In other words, this can fit here very easily. Why? Because in this low volume and low momentum, we need to raise fund actually to help the startup companies to move on, and so on. So this is just a slide to show the possible actually opportunities offered. But actually, every Muslim country is in need of every aspect of Islamic fintech, whether in the Islamic banking, whether in the Islamic takaful or takaful insurance, or Islamic insurance, or in the Islamic capital market, or in the Islamic social finance through waqf and zakah. Every Muslim country is in need of that, right? So that summarizes my discussion on the overall. Hopefully, this has given an idea of what Islamic fintech is all about, the main areas, the main potentials, the main challenges, and lastly, the main prospects and opportunities available for the Islamic Ummah to move ahead, inshallah. Thank you very much, Dr. Mahideen. And
Assalamu alaikum, Ustaz. Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation and also informative session. I hope all participants benefited from your presentation, alhamdulillah. So we do have some times for taking some questions or any comments from the participants. So we do open now the floor for participants. Either you may raise your hand and we'll switch on the microphone. You may speak, or you can write your question or comment in question and answer section. So we do wait for your questions, inshallah. I think there are two brothers raised their hand. No, more than two. Brother Yahya Abdul Halim. Brother Yahya, please, you may ask the question. Yakallah. Brother Yahya. Or Brother Muhammad Aish, please welcome. If you have any question, you can ask Brother Muhammad Aish, Brother Yahya Abdul Halim. Or Dr. Ibrahim Nasur, please, if you are with us. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor, about this session. But my question is directly to the professor. What should I do as a professor to learn about this technology? Did I have another PhD, or there is a diploma which is can give me the opportunity or the ability to make me qualified to teach this an important demand? So what should I? Where's the start point? All the time I ask this question to the professor, I don't have a clear answer. There any
تخلص المحاضره من بعد باش ما تكرر باش نتاع الشهاده باش تسجل فيها باش يرغموك باللي تشهد اخر اللي كان يتم ارسال رابط تسجيل الشهاده.
I think you can answer, you can say something to Dr. Ibrahim or whatever he asked.
Thank you. Are you heard me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. My question direct to you, Professor. What should I do? Did I have another PhD, or or there's an institution that give me a diploma for this important fintech, Islamic fintech, or another issues? So what's the start point? should I have another PhD, or there is a diploma that gives me the qualification to teach this important issue for my students? This question all the time I'm asking the professor, and didn't find any clear.
May I know your field? What is your field?
Islamic finance.
Islamic finance. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, of course.
You are doing now your master's or PhD or what?
I have PhD.
Ah, you have your PhD. Okay. Well, normally, I mean, my understanding is that right now we don't have a specific specialization called Islamic financial technology. There is no specific master's, program under this name. However, students who are doing their master's and PhD, they can opt to write their master's and PhD in a topic related. And this is what is happening now in our university and many universities. Students will write on crowdfunding, on cryptocurrency, on smart contracts, on artificial intelligence, how it is used in Islamic bank. I mean, but why? Because there is no specific program under this. I mean, until now, we don't have that specialization. However, my advice for those who are still doing their master's and PhD, they have to choose a topic in this, and at the same time they have to do some kind of internship in these Islamic fintech companies. There are many Islamic fintech companies across the Muslim world. They do this internship to get to know the technicalities of Islamic fintech. But I am sure in the future there will be more programs on Islamic fintech. It's a very new kind of trend, and we recommend students actually to do their self-learning, such as reading, consulting, attending workshops. And I'm sure in the near future there will be many institutions offering a kind of a diploma or certificate in these kind of things. But right now we don't have that. So my advice to you in your case is to do some kind of self-learning, try to get attached to these Islamic fintech companies in the form of a part-time job, or you do research for them. There are plenty of opportunities you can take advantage of. Wallahu a'lam.
Thank you very much, Prof. Let's see, Brother Sami Peraz. Please welcome, brother.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you very much, Professor Yunus, and thank you very much for those who contribute in to make this event happen. Actually, I would like to make small contribution in the one of the challenges of Islamic fintechs. In human capital, we mostly focus on engineers, DevOps, or UX designers, or the subject matter experts. But there is very increasing demand on product managers and product owners. I'm working in a technology company that provides digital solutions and softwares to fintechs and financial institutions. And from industry perspective, I can say that there is huge demand for product managers, and which is one of the points that we need. I wanted to highlight.
Thank you very much. I think that's a very good point. I agree with you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sami, for your point, for your presentation of important point. Let's see, Mr. Ramadan bin Brahim. If you have any question or comment, please.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khairan, Prof. Yunus, for the Allah yajzak khair. I'm a telecom engineer and retired, and I'm a doctorate student in Jamiat al-Zaytuna in Tunis.
Inshallah.
جزاك الله خيرا. فجست انطلاقا من القاعدة الشرعية الحكم على الشيء يعني فرع من تصوره. Just if you allow me, just I want to talk a little bit about the technology, on technology side. When we are talking about fintech, that means using technology to finance or finance in technology. In fact, technology is not new. It's not new. It is started from the 80s, and it started with cables, then analog systems. At that time, the signals are electrical signals. Then it came to digital. When we talk about digital, that means the language in digital that is zeros and one. And this one is language of computers. So adapting the environment to computers. Then afterwards, the IP cloud, and so on. Before the fintech, now the digital, the currencies, cryptocurrencies, blockchain, all those things. Everywhere we are satisfied with having in our computers, in our mobiles, the applications for doing everything. I'm living in Qatar. I don't go anywhere, even with government. We don't need to go from my mobile or my laptop. I do all my needs. So we are in fintech. We are living in fintech. Even though now, for me, I divide the fintech into two parts. The one which is we are using it now. It is the fintech electronic system. Then the one which came after blockchains, cryptocurrencies, it is the digital. So this is really, we can see now some of platforms like Ethis and others, they are still using electronic system. They are not using blockchains. So this is my contribution in this. My question is, for our world in non-developed countries like my country, the challenges, a lot of challenges to go for fintech. Now we have a sandbox just to understand what is fintech and so on. But I don't expect personally, I don't expect to use fintech to use blockchains for a minimum reason. For us, yani, the country is benefiting of the people who are living outside and sending currencies to our countries. So it was not allowed to even our currency shouldn't give opportunities لتهريب العملة outside. Okay, so the only solution for us is التكامل العربي الإسلامي, which really we can benefit of all these technologies. Otherwise we will be lost. جزاكم الله خيرا for the time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think I have nothing to comment but to agree with you that we are living already in the digital, in the technology world, but there are some development happening in the finance world, which has actually triggered what we call now fintech. You have also referred to something very important, is the danger of some fintech solutions such as cryptocurrencies that may lead to money laundering. And that's the main reason why many governments, many central banks have banned actually cryptocurrency, because that could be used for money laundering. If it is considered as a currency, as a medium of exchange. That's why the majority have accepted it as a digital asset, but not as a medium of exchange for fear of money laundering, terrorism funding, and manipulation here and there. So there are a few concerns. But generally, the virtues of blockchain and smart contracts, artificial intelligence, analytics, cloud technology, Internet of Things, they are going to be very much practiced all over the world, and we will be actually forced to use them whether we like it or not. Probably our generation, you and me, we are from the old generation. Dr. Muhyiddin is from the new generation. He will be enjoying it more than us, actually.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you also. So let's see let's listen to Miss Hari Salmin. Yeah, Miss Hari Salmin, please welcome. If you have anything, please, you can share with us.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa barakatuh.
First of all, I would like to thank you, Professor Yunus, for this very helpful and informative presentation.
You're welcome.
After that, I would like to ask a question in the Q&A's section. I don't know, maybe it didn't show something. I asked, first of all, if we take or we merge fintech, won't our money or financials won't be exposed on the internet, because it will be fintech. The concept of fintech is to do everything digitally. So won't all our financials be exposed on the internet? So any cyber attack or any, as you said, any hackers or developed hackers, or maybe if we are doing financials through a non-secure, very secure source or anything like that, all our financials will be vulnerable.
Yes, I got you.
And after that, I have another question. So now we have like specific entities for example, in our country, we have specific entities that look in every project and says that whether it's Sharia compliance or not. And as you said, that Sharia compliance is one of the issues in the fintech. So will there be a specific entity, like a global entity or something like that, that view all the fintech projects, or like there will be like a certain symbol or a certain certificate for those projects or for those companies that they are Sharia compliance, like there's a simple certificate or stamp or anything like that. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I start with your last question. I take, for example, Malaysia as an example. For fintech companies, such as crowdfunding companies, I mentioned one of them is Ethis. Ethis is one of the Islamic crowdfunding regulated by the Securities Commission of Malaysia under the fintech project. One of the regulation is to appoint a Sharia advisor. So they have appointed a Sharia advisor. It's a regulation. Any Islamic fintech company must appoint a Sharia advisor to make sure that the transactions and the operations are Sharia compliant. However, for some issues, such as those I have mentioned in my presentation, such as the legitimacy of cryptocurrencies as a medium of exchange, or the legitimacy of smart contracts to sell and buy electronically via the blockchain, this is yet to be decided by the Sharia authorities, even at the level of the International Fiqh Academy of Jeddah and Mecca. So they're yet to actually finalize a decision on that. But of course, the moment you call it Islamic fintech, this has to be regulated and the regulator requires a Sharia advisor or committee for that. For your first question on the risk, the cyber risk, you're actually talking about the cyber risk, whether this data can be manipulated and also hacked. Generally, this is also something which is regulated and is deemed to be secure, and blockchain is always described as, or has been described as, the safest and the most secure platform that you can imagine. However, we have read news that this blockchain has been hacked. Some of the blockchains have been hacked, but it's just that what we call the level of hacking is not similar to the ordinary one. I mean, the possibility is still very, very slim, very small actually. And this is just similar to any online transaction. For example, when you use your Islamic credit card, so it is still digital and the possibility of hacking is there, but how many times your credit card has been hacked? Probably 0%. So this is encrypted, completely encrypted. But this doesn't mean that it is not subject to hacking. Everything is possible. But so far, there are guarantees that this kind of technology is safe and secure.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Prof. There is another question from Mr. Abdul Kabir in question and answer section. Could you see, please, Ustaz? It has been learned that the difference between conventional and Islamic fintech is very limited. It has also been mentioned that the main Sharia issues have not yet been addressed or being under review by the concerned authorities. In your opinion, Prof, what caused this late decision to come out?
These late decisions to come out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what is mean, the review by the concerned authority has not been yet addressed on the issue.
So far, there are two major issues which are still causing debate from the Sharia perspective. One is the cryptocurrency, whether it is, as I have repeated this many times, whether it is a legal tender, which means a medium of exchange. This has been discussed by the International Fiqh Academy last year in Jeddah, and they have postponed the decision to this year. They're going to make a decision this year. This is on whether cryptocurrency is money or not. The second one is the smart contract, whether a smart contract is a Sharia compliant contract, whereby we can use it. A smart contract is a contract which is done in the blockchain platform, whereby it is electronically programmed as well as executed if certain conditions are met. Whether this contract meets the Sharia principles of a Sharia contract, whether it is sale contract or a mudaraba contract or a mushara contract, or whatever contract that you may have. So these two have been postponed to further deliberations. Other authorities, namely the Sharia committees, the Sharia authorities of ministries of religion, the ministries of Islamic affairs, the Muslim world is divided on this. Some Muslim countries allow the cryptocurrency as a money, and the majority have not. And the main reason is it doesn't meet the requirement, it doesn't meet the conditions of a currency. On top of that, the volatility of this currency today is of this value, tomorrow is on a higher value, the next day is on a lower value. That volatility has indicated the high risk of this particular asset, and therefore many authorities are not keen actually to accept it as a medium of exchange. And in Malaysia, for instance, they haven't. I mean, the Sharia, even though the Sharia authority have not decided yet, I mean, the main Sharia authority is the Sharia Advisory Council. They have not made a resolution on that. Even though some other Sharia authorities have already banned it clearly and explicitly, but the main authority, which is the Sharia Advisory Council, are yet actually to decide on it. Not because it is, they are late. No, they are not late, but the complexity of the issue, the nature of the issue is so complex. It needs more understanding because this is something new, completely new. So we need to understand what is this digital asset and what is this blockchain actually.
Barakallah, thank you very much. I found another question in a chat group from Sheikh Bashiro, I think. I'm sorry if I misinterpret your name. Is there a framework in preparation from the international entities like AOFI, IFSB, and IIFM to regulate the Islamic fintechs?
There is no
framework, yeah.
There is no framework so far, but these issues have, as I said, have been discussed in IOFI. Last year, there was this annual Sharia Committees Conference, international conference, and there was a session on cryptocurrency. There was a session on some fintech issues, and there was no resolution made. All right. The Fiqh Academy I have just mentioned, they have not made a resolution, they postponed it. So there is no framework so far, either on the smart contracts or on the cryptocurrency. Other things, such as artificial intelligence, such as the robot advising, you will find views from individual scholars, not from the Sharia authorities. So to answer your question, there is no framework yet. There is no Sharia framework because the Sharia fraternity is still studying these issues one by one. And they haven't yet made any decision so far.
Shukran Ustaz. Thank you very much. So we are about to conclude the session today. On behalf of Nahdi al-Iqtisad al-Islami bi Jamiat al-Kuwait, we would like to thank all participants who join us in the Zoom and also in YouTube channel. So we would like to thank you very much for joining us today. And we also thank Nahdi al-Iqtisad al-Islami management, especially Dr. Ala Al-Ubaid. And our special thanks, of course, goes to our professor, Dr. Yunus Sawalhi, for your time and effort today. And may Allah bless you, may Allah grant your effort and time. So if you have last words, please welcome, Prof.
Thank you very much. Of course, I'd like to thank again the Nahdi al-Iqtisad al-Islami for this another invitation to address this very distinguished audience, experts, students, lecturers. Jazakumullahu khairan jami'an. And I would like to encourage also further topics, especially timely topics such as this, as the industry is developing. And I hope the club, Nahdi al-Iqtisad al-Islami, will contribute towards sharing this knowledge and establishing itself actually in the world of what you call contributing knowledge of Islamic finance. I think they are in the right direction. Please go ahead and may Allah be with you. Jazakumullah khair.
Inshallah, Amin Ya Rab. Thank you very much, Ustaz. So with that, we conclude today's session here. We just recite Surah Al-Asr. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilus salihat wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you.